It's a big day in Supreme Court today as judges gear up to hear pleas related to the big CBI versus CBI standoff. First, the top court will continue hearing CBI Director who's on leave, Alok Verma's petition challenging the government's order to send him on leave in the first place. The court will then consider the report of the Vigilance Commission with regard to the probe conducted on Alok Verma in view of the corruption charges against him. The Supreme Court in all probability will also consider the report of acting CBI Director M. Nageshwara Rao. This with regard to the decisions taken by him after he took charge on the 26th of October. Reports of the orders passed by Rao was filed in a sealed cover. The report of the Central Vigilance Commission was also filed in a sealed envelope, and both the orders have been taken on record. The Supreme Court had taken both the reports on November the 12th. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court will also hear a third plea filed by NGO Common Cause, which has challenged the centre's decision to send the CBI Director on leave. The NGO had claimed that this was an example of gross interference in the working of the Central Bureau of Investigation. Joining me live now is the BJP's Shaina NC. Also with us is Shantanu Sen, former Joint Director of the CBI. Mr. Sen, I'd like to quickly come to you first. Big day in the Supreme Court today, where the crux of what the Supreme Court will be looking at is the decision of the central government to send Alok Verma on leave as well as certain other matters. Your reading of why today is important and what you expect to see happen?
The Supreme Court has fixed today to decide upon two factors. One, whether the leave sanctioned to Mr. Verma was a legitimate order, because the other side has taken the stand that no leave can be granted to him, and that leave by the controlling authority, the leave should have been granted to him by the appointing authority. And the second thing which the Supreme Court has taken on itself is the finding of the CVC. Now, I'm not sure whether examining the finding is the role of the Supreme Court at this stage. This should have been examined by the controlling authority, and with the comments of the controlling authority, the Supreme Court would have been in a better position to judge the correctness of the finding. Regarding the matter of leave, that is a matter which is before the consideration of the Supreme Court. Can anybody else except that appointing authority send the Director CBI on leave, forced leave or any leave? As far as I know, the Director has been taking leave when he goes abroad or when he is in town, and that leave has always been granted by the controlling authority. This is the first time a director has been asked to go on leave.
Yes.
And whether there is a difference between being asked to go on leave and for applying for leave, that is a subtle point which I am sure the Supreme Court may like to look into.
Okay, Shaina NC, given what the Central Vigilance Commission has said, on the Central Vigilance Commission report on Alok Verma, do you think, I don't want to second guess what's going to happen in Supreme Court, of course, that's up to the honorable judges, but do you think the government is now on a bit of a sticky wicket going forward into Supreme Court on what is going to be a crucial day now?
Firstly, please understand that the government has nothing to do with this entire controversy. It is for the Honorable Supreme Court to base its findings on investigation. Having said that, if we believe that there are two contrarian opinions on a particular issue which translates into a kind of controversy, it is best for the CVC to give its viewpoint, which is what they did in this particular case to the government. We have always maintained that investigative agencies must be free and fair, must be given the autonomy, and that has been the endeavor of our government. So I think that we need not get into speculative theories as to to who is going on leave and why somebody is put on leave. If it is a process of investigation, we need to adhere to it and believe that there is a Supreme Court that is looking into this matter.
Okay.
As far as we are concerned, I think that it is really not necessary to opine on this particular story. Let it play out in the Supreme Court and then let's find what the outcome is.
Kapil Sankla, well-known advocate, also with us. Good morning, Kapil. Thank you for being with us here on The Burning Question. Where do things stand according to you, Kapil?
Good morning.
You know, with the developments of the last few days, the Central Vigilance Commission report, you know, the report, some reports that have appeared in the media quoting sources, you know, about Alok Verma having a bit of an advantage. Nobody here second guessing what's going to happen in the Supreme Court. But what, according to you, or how, according to you, is the fight configured now before this crucial day?
See, first and foremost, I think what we have to appreciate is the conduct of the Honorable Supreme Court on how it's handled the entire issue. We understand that it's a very, very tricky issue. It has political ramifications. It has large-scale ramifications vis-a-vis the other investigating agencies. And what the Honorable Supreme Court has done is first reminded all of us that the CVC has superintendence over CBI. Now, this had been watered down over the years, over the conduct of CBI, with one government saying that CBI does not come under RTI, another government saying that the power of superintendence is extremely limited. It cannot actually hold water over how the CBI functions. All that is required to be done is that the CBI informs CVC when it's filing a case, and if CVC does not accept it, then it can also file another report and thereby somehow putting pressure over CVC. So what's happened today is excellent. It's actually shown us that there is some kind of crack, some kind of division in the premier investigating agency of India.
Okay.
Now, what the Honorable Supreme Court has done is, one, it has brought to fore the powers of CVC and asked the CVC to file its report, which is already before the Honorable Supreme Court. Secondly, it's got one of their own to do a fact-finding, which was something which was worrying all of us as defense lawyers,
right?
That what is going to happen, who's going to investigate the premier investigating agency of India. So it's got one of their own, so there cannot be any element of partiality or you know, any of those things. So all of that combined brings to forth what is going to happen before the Honorable Supreme Court in terms of the facts that are placed before the Honorable Supreme Court. The powers of CVC again reiterated that superintendence does not just mean that it is just sitting as a guide, but it also has teeth. And I heard somebody saying in one of the channels that it's a caged parrot. You know, the government has exerted a lot of influence over the decision, over what's happened. Now, all I want to say is that this has been unfortunately the case with every regime. It's been the caged parrot, dehorse whosoever has been in power.
Yeah.
So it is the doing of CBI itself which has now come to forth, and what the Honorable Supreme Court has done, I think, is fantastic. It has thought out of the box. It has brought these various ramifications vis-a-vis investigation, power of CVC, decisions under law, under the Special Act, etc. That would be decided by the Honorable Supreme Court.
Okay, so you know, it's very interesting. So Shaina, it's not just about, I'll go to Shantanu Sen in a moment, but you know, what happens in the Supreme Court today is not just going to be about leave or, you know, who investigates the investigating agencies. It's going to go down to, you know, perhaps the fundamental question, you know, that has rattled the CBI across administrations, like Kapil Sankla said, the old caged parrot reputation that it has. What happens today in Supreme Court and perhaps over the next few hearings could impinge directly on something that even the BJP has accused the Congress of making the CBI a caged parrot.
Fantastic, yes.
Well, we clearly don't want to do that, and that is exactly why we've taken the decision that you can have the CVC investigate in a situation such as this. If there are contrarian opinions in large organizations, how do you deal with it? One is if the government chose to interfere, which we chose not to. The second is that the honorable courts obviously are going to be in a position to be basing its investigation on fact and not on hearsay. So as I said, rather than getting into speculative theory, when a matter is sub judice, just wait. And I think that today you will know what the honorable courts think based on the investigation.
Okay, Kapil Sankla, you know, I repeat my question. I want to word it a little
please.
differently because, I want to make it clear for our viewers that things have been moving really fast. You've got the Central Vigilance Commission report now, which has been widely interpreted as putting Alok Verma in a bit of a position of advantage going forward. What you very succinctly, provided was a picture of the many agencies involved here and why this is a complicated issue. I'm asking, is Alok Verma at something of an advantage now going forward? Does he have something of a high ground going forward now against the government?
You see, we haven't seen the report yet. What we have is hearsay.
Yeah.
So it would be very difficult to venture a guess. However, I can put it under this. If I had to slot it, I would say this, that it doesn't really matter whether, there are certain media reports that Verma has advantage over Asthana, etc., etc. What really matters is how the matter has been investigated upon, how the fact-finding has been done. That is one. Secondly, to say that Asthana has some advantage over, to say that Verma has some advantage over Asthana, I think it's too premature because we really don't know. What you're talking about is the two heads of the premier agency.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what you're basically talking about is what kind of evidence would one bring against the other? This is basically a mudslinging match. So what you're telling me is, how much would stick on the other? The fact is that both of them are dirtying in the game.
Which
Mud
is,
has already stuck. It is already before you.
This is an excellent point.
What
this
is
an excellent point, China.
That
I'm going to ask you a little bit more in detail about that, Kapil. But China, that's a question a lot of people, many people I've been speaking to are also wondering, is this irreversible damage? What has happened with the CBI? I'm not talking just about the people, but I'm talking about the morale of the institution, about the command and control of the institution, about the institution's very ability to conduct its core function. Has that been in some ways irreversibly damaged as a result of what's been happening over the last few weeks?
Not at all. If at all, Shiv, I think it's quite the contrary. I mean, you have a large organization like the Central Bureau of Investigation, and if there are contrarian opinions between A and B, rather than us interfering or siding with a particular story or a particular accusation, the facts are out on in the public domain. The Central Vigilance Commission also with the Supreme Court is going to base its finding on fact. So I think it will boost the morale of the Central Bureau of Investigation, and they do understand for the first time in the history of India, you have a government that is choosing not to side or not to instigate or not to insulate. And when I say insulate, it's a very, very important word in this particular case, because here you have in any large organization, when there are two views, what do? You investigate, and that's exactly what's happening. And I don't think we should speak further because the matter is sub judice, and let the honorable courts decide.
Kapil Sankla, the same question to you here. We saw the CBI's entire brass attending an art of living session recently, for positivity and mental peace and some such. Many people made light of that, saying, why does the CBI need this? But it was a reminder to many of us that this is an institution of humans ultimately, and what is happening hits at the very core of their function. The two bosses fighting it out, slugging it out in Supreme Court, the BJP government saying this has nothing to do with us and this will actually create a better institution. What do you think? Is it going to create a better institution, or is it going to undermine the way the CBI functions even further going forward?
See, one, I agree with what the lady said. I completely agree with her. I'm sorry I didn't catch her name. That's one. Secondly, and since I'm not a creature of politics, I can actually venture to make some guesses and make some statement. Is this, I don't really believe that it is going to damage the institution of CBI. I believe that it is going to cleanse it. I believe it is always better to bring forth before the media, before the general public, any ills that irk the system. I believe that it is better to bring it out so that there are chances of cleansing for clearing, for bringing better systems in place. That is my belief.
I want to
Second,
bring in Anisha Mathur.
When you talk about an irreparable damage,
Finish your point, Kapil.
shall I go forward?
Yeah.
What? Yes. Secondly, what I was saying was that when you actually talk about damage to the system, I am sorry, the system was already flawed. It was already damaged. There have been questions on how CBI investigates and inquires and what are the real reasons behind it. When you talk about a criminal case, there is something malified. There are also inquiries and investigations that take place not because of any genuine complaint, but because of factors that are not in the CRPC or IPC. So I think what has happened is excellent. I am glad that the government has allowed CVC to have a say in this matter. I am glad that CVC is again coming into power the way it was meant to be under the Special Act. And I am glad that the matter is before the Honorable Supreme Court and under public scrutiny as it is today.
Okay, I want to go across now to India Today's legal correspondent who joins us now, Anisha Mathur, who's going to be reporting from the Supreme Court today on that crucial day. The dice is loaded. Lots of expectations, Anisha, on what's going to happen today. How is the fight loaded up today in light of the developments of the last few days?
Well, see, we are expecting the Supreme Court to take note of these reports that had been filed by the CVC as well as by the CBI itself. What we are waiting for is to see exactly what the recommendation from the CVC has been, because those recommendations were given in sealed cover. We saw that the CVC has examined, questioned both CBI Director Alok Verma as well as Special Director Rakesh Asthana, whose so-called rivalry has been is said to be at the heart of this entire controversy. The CVC has also questioned Satish Sana, the Hyderabad-based businessman, who is not only accused of giving bribes to senior CBI officials, he's also the one who filed this complaint in the first place. So as our guest was just saying, that there is a chance that the CBI will also be cleansed, but we will have to see exactly how this entire thing will play out in the court today, because there are a lot of questions that are still unanswered as to exactly what is happening in the CBI, and the court is very clear that they want to hear everything, and we will in just a short while find out exactly what has been going on behind the scenes and how the court is going to allow this to go further.
Anisha, just break it down for us very simply in terms of what are the basic 4 or 5 questions before the Supreme Court, and what is it going to rule on? If we were to talk about the leave, being sent on leave, and the other issues, what are the 4 or 5 things the Supreme Court could potentially rule on, that we'll have clarity on?
See, the first thing that is before the Supreme Court, according to the petitions that have been filed, is whether the government took the correct decision to send the CBI Director on leave in the manner that they did. Did the government overstep its own authority? That is the first thing that the petitioners have asked for, because we need to remember that there are 4 petitions before the court today. One by Alok Verma himself, who has said that there is gross interference by the government in the functioning of the CBI, and the court will also be looking into this aspect. The second one is, of course, the entire question of allegations of corruption against Alok Verma and other senior CBI officials. That one is what the CVC inquiry is supposed to be answering.
Okay.
The CVC had given its report on these allegations on Monday. The court had taken time to look into the report filed by the CVC, and today the Supreme Court is going to, according to what the CVC says, look into whether the government could have taken the decision that it did. So on both these aspects, the court is going to be looking into that, whether the government overstepped its authority, and is there such a rot in the CBI that is being alleged.
Okay, so potential embarrassment on all sides, depending on which way the justices rule today in Supreme Court, if in fact they reach a conclusion on this very messy affair in India's premier investigating agencies. Thank you very much to all of our guests and Anisha, who will be keeping in touch with as she enters Supreme Court. She'll be looking to give us the first reports on what happens on the inside.
Thanks for watching the video. For more such news and updates, please like, share and subscribe to India Today. Also check out our other great videos from our channel. We know you will love to.